What's going on, everyone? So the upcoming Scream 7 will mark 30 years of the Scream franchise. Not to the date, but to the year, right? Scream 96 came out in 1996, and you're going to have Scream 7 come out February 27th, 2026. And leading into that, there was a lot of rumors, kind of word going around that Scream was going to kind of maximize that 30th anniversary type thing. And it was like, okay, well, if it's coming out in 2025, maybe they're doing a time jump. There was talks about there being a time jump like in Scream 3 or Scream 2, where in between Scream 1 and 2, you got 2 years. Are they going to do something where it's like 6 months or a year to where you're in 2026? Well, now we know that the movie's actually coming out in 2026. So they don't even really need to do a time jump anymore. But question is, what direction are they going to go with Scream? How are they going to approach this? And there's a lot of different debates going around right now on various characters returning to the fold, right? Particularly with Dewey Riley, David Arquette. A lot of people really want to see Dewey return, come back in some form. Courtney Cox even recently touched on it and said she wants to see David Arquette return to the Scream franchise, but he's dead. How do you do that, right? And it wasn't one of those things where, I've seen people even say, well, look at Chad. There's a big difference between getting stabbed a bunch of times, which, look, I have said repeatedly that the Chad thing was ridiculous. It was silly, and he should have died. But big difference between getting stabbed a bunch of times and being literally gutted, right? Like, we watched him get from, sternum to chest, both sides, back and front, just gutted, right? Like, you're not really walking that off, right? Like, it's fine. I just stuffed everything back into place and, used some duct tape and we're good, right? Like, it's just not how it works. So the question is, and you also have, Stu Macher, Matthew Lillard, who for years people have wanted him to return, but you think of this upcoming Scream film, and the question becomes, how can you kind of bring these characters back, given where we're at in the franchise? The only way you can really do that is to do a direct sequel, where, basically Scream 7, which you have Sidney and Gale, who are the leads again, or supposed to be. Gale, she's still not signed on, as far as we know, at least at the time of recording this video. Obviously, things could change, but, you have them as your two leads, most likely. You want to bring back Dewey. Can't do it if you keep the continuity. A lot of people want to see Stu back. Could you do it and keep the continuity? Sure. It just would be a little ridiculous at this point. 30 years and not even so much as a whisper, not so much as a mention. It's just, it'd be silly. You'd have to answer so many questions. You'd have to do so many different, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you did a direct sequel, well, now you could have Dewey back. Now you could have Stu back if you wanted to, and you could explain and justify, Stu, kind of have a little backstory where, Stu, survived the attacks and has been in prison the last 30 years. And you don't have, 6 other movies that you have of story where you don't have Matthew Lillard and Stu Macher, right? So if you did a direct sequel, you could do that. Now, here's the thing. Personally, me, I hate the idea. I do not like the idea. But YouTube, entertainment, we're having fun. I enjoy having fun conversations. I know many of you do as well. That's why you watch my videos. Whether we agree, disagree, it's always a good time. It's what it's about, right? Friendly conversations, exploring different ideas, exploring different possibilities. And it is something that pretty much every horror franchise has done at some point. Why not Scream? Now, me personally, I love the continuity, because very few horror franchises actually maintain continuity, especially after 30 years. I mean, look at Halloween and think of all the timelines and branches and one could argue, that you have Scream 4, right? And it's kind of always been its own standalone. You have Scream 5 and 6, you could argue is its own standalone. You could even pick up, like, you don't even have to do a direct sequel after Scream 1 if you don't want to. I don't think you can bring Stu back still. But if you wanted to keep Dewey alive and kind of continue that story, you could pick up after Scream 3, right? And you could still do the Mark Kincaid thing. You could still do Sydney having kids with Mark Kincaid and all that. So, like, you could still keep some things that you set up in Scream 5 and 6, but kind of have this be a continuation from Scream 3. That's another approach. That's another possibility, right? Like, Scream 5 and 6 would easily, you'd be able to say, were its own thing, and its own film, and its own timeline. Scream 4, you could kind of do, if you wanted to, you could kind of keep that canon, and maybe even do, because, you know, Dewey and Gale were still alive. So if you wanted to, you could do like like 5 as a direct sequel to 4. And you could still have Kirby, because Kirby's supposed to be in this film. And on top of that, they're supposed to be doing a Kirby series. So if you just completely retcon and just pretend like 5 and 6 never really existed, well then, you know, how do you make Kirby make sense? Well, if you kind of just went a new direction where this is a continuation after Scream 4, you could have Kirby be alive, right? And kind of explain it better and kind of rehash that again, and then establish and set up for your Kirby film you're supposed to do, right? Again, I am not a fan of it. Because my thing is that, like, okay, if you just did one kind of retcon and you just remove 5 and 6 from the equation, right? Then, okay, sure, right? Like, again, I don't really like the idea, but sure. My concern would be that you've now opened Pandora's box and you can't shut it. And then, you know, 10, 15 years from now, Scream has become Halloween, where you need a literal map to navigate all the different timelines and this, that, and the I don't want that for this franchise. Like, the beauty of Scream is that it's not a Michael. It's not a Jason. It's not a Freddy, right? It's not some supernatural thing, right? It's based in realism. Are there unrealistic moments? Are there unrealistic elements? Is there movie logic? Yes. It's still a movie. It's not real. It's not real life. It's still a movie, right? So, of course, there's going to be things, but again, the basis of Scream is very real. It's you know, again, you see it every day on the news, damn near. And it's unfortunate, but it is. It's the reality, right? It is very personable. It is very close to home. Yes, usually it's a gun instead of a knife, but it's still something that exists, right? And, you know, because it's not a Jason or a Michael or a Freddy or anything like that, it's whoever's under the mask. You can do this franchise for literally ever. You can make a new film every single year, and it could just be different people. You know, like, think of things like Doctor Who. Think of how long Doctor Who has been around for, right? Because it's all, like, the story is always someone different. Yes, it's Doctor Who, but it's always a different form, right? But because it can be anybody as the guise of Doctor Who, right? You could just do it forever. Same thing with Scream, right? Like, it is whoever you need under the guise, the moniker of Ghostface, underneath the costume. I like keeping the continuity. I like that this franchise hasn't gone off the rails, right? Again, I love Dewey. I'm not mad that they killed Dewey, right? I'm mad that they killed Dewey for no reason. Because the whole reason that originally why they killed Dewey was to change the narrative and set the standard and tone going forward, right? Every Scream film, there was no stakes. Gale, Sydney, and Dewey, you knew what was going to happen at the end of the movie. Dewey would essentially get killed on screen. give the thumbs up at the end. Gail get beat up a little bit. Sydney get beat up a little, but they're all going to live. There's no stakes, right? You put them in a compromised position, you know they're going to make it out one way or another. And the idea was you kill Dewey to raise the stakes and show, no, this is a different era. Different people behind it. This is it. There's new direction, right? And nobody is off limits. Nobody. That was the idea. But here's the problem, is then you got to Scream 6, and they didn't kill anybody. Literally, nobody. They killed Anika and then the people in the bodega, and that's it. What was the point of killing Dewey? To kind of reset the franchise when then you essentially retcon that by not killing anybody in Scream 6. It's silly. It makes no sense. And then bringing back Stu, right? If you really were, which I've said, if they were ever going to do it, this would be the film to do it. But even then, it's just like, how do you do that with it making sense? I know, like, the diehard Stu stands probably wouldn't really care. As long as it's like a half plausible story. I know most of them, sure, that's fine. I can overlook that to get Stu back. I can't personally, right? And I just think you bring it, like, kind of rushing him back into one film and jam-packing it into one film. Just, there's going to be so many questions. There's going to be so many things that just don't make sense, don't add up, right? You're going to need more than just like, a 2-minute scene of dialogue. But again, if you do a direct sequel, then you could have everybody back. I think it'd be more likely, instead of doing a direct sequel to Scream 96, you do a direct sequel to Scream 4, or you do a direct sequel to Scream 3. But then if you do a direct sequel to Scream 3, then Kirby, now you could reestablish Kirby as, like, essentially it's Kirby, but it's a, like, not the version from Scream 4. It's somebody, it's like this new version who's just the FBI agent, but then it can get a little silly. Again, you can see how it can start getting a little convoluted there. I don't like the idea, but it is something that I've seen kind of going around in various debates on bringing this guy back, and with the Dewey stuff. I had to ask the question. I had to make the video and, of course, have the discussion with you all. So let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, because, as always, I want to know. Do you like the idea of a direct sequel? If so, where would you want to do the direct sequel from? Direct sequel from, Scream 1? Do you want to do a direct sequel from Scream 3, Scream 4? Do you think, like, neither, just keep the continuity? Keep Scream 7 what it is, Scream 7? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.